Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Craig Bowers. We are here after a little bit of a break for Purdue basketball to preview the Purdue-Toledo game Sunday, December 29th. It is a 6 p.m. Eastern time tip on the Big Ten Network. Obviously, Purdue has dropped 2 straight, 3 of the last 4. Their toughest stretch of games the entire season in that little stretch. So this, you never want to completely look over a bye game in a game like Toledo. A Toledo team that's, projected to be above 500 in the MAC, and the MAC isn't fantastic this year, but it's not like the MAC's the worst conference ever. But at the same time, it does feel a little bit like a potential get-right game for Purdue, just kind of get the gears churning a little bit again before you kind of jump pretty quickly into Big Ten play. So we'll break it all down here for the preview. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. If you do that, then you'll be notified, 1, when these previews always go live, and 2, when our post-game shows do go live, which will be live sometime shortly after the final buzzer of Purdue-Toledo. Got the housekeeping out of the way. Craig, I'll throw it to you. Kind of initial thoughts on Toledo and Purdue and kind of all of that.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's just good to be back. I feel like I haven't talked to you in forever. It feels like it's been at least over a week since we did our last preview show, and very thankful that Greg was able to hop on. Just as much as anything, Greg hadn't been able to be on a show really for the duration this since the season started, so it was good to have him back on. But allowed me to go to the press conferences down at that Auburn game and then get on the road. Just like everybody else, we're coming through the holiday season here. Hopefully everybody had some nice time with their family and nice meals. I know we always do a big seafood dinner, so always good times. But I'm glad that we're getting back into this now, getting back into the season started. One more bye game, right? And then we are getting into the heart of the Big Ten basketball season from that point on. And to be honest, I know, like you said, we don't want to ever overlook a bye game, but man, just watching this Toledo team, Purdue should handle business. And like, if they don't, that's maybe a little bit of cause for concern, because this Toledo team to me is not good, especially not defensively. A team that comes in 6-5, they've lost 4 out of their last 5 games. 3 of those 4 that they've lost have been by like 25 points or more. Their only win in that stretch is against Defiance College, which I don't think is a Division I school, if I remember right. Coming into this game, they're ranked 214th in KenPom, and they're really unbalanced. Offense, a little bit better than defense, with offense being ranked 122nd, defense 327th. I texted you as I was doing prep for this show, Joe, and just said I can't find anything positive to say about their defense. They're bad. They don't navigate screens well, in my mind. They try to double the post, but they don't do it well. They don't keep people out of the paint. Their post defender is, man, he tries. That's about all I can say, but not an excellent post defender. There's just not a whole lot they do right, in my mind, from a defensive standpoint. 2-point percentage defense, they rank 336th in the country. To me, this is a game that Purdue should get right, kind of get their feet back under them. And I'll be honest, I'll be looking for that scoreboard to hit 100 before the game's over.
I think it should be closer to that too. My only concern is that, like, I think Toledo does good stuff offensively, and the only concern I have really for this game is that this becomes like a 95-89 type game. I don't think that happens. I think Purdue takes care of business, and this is a easy double-digit win. But if we are going to talk about briefly the pathway for Toledo to be in this game, it's that Toledo just keeps up scoring. They run a lot of good sets. We'll talk more, maybe a bit more in a second, but like, they're going to push the ball a lot, make or miss, kind of that Michigan State style at times, where they're going to just kind of let their dudes go. But then in the half court, they run a lot of good stuff. They have good talents, but you are 100% correct on defense. Like, sometimes they switch well off ball, can kind of take away some Purdue actions, maybe. But even then, it's like, it feels like that leads to just as many buckets as it does stops. It felt like they're a team that just, like, defensively doesn't have rules. It's more of just like, kind of just try to go stop them. Like, you'll see guys kind of switch in certain spots. You'll see guys kind of zone up in certain spots. And not that they don't have rules, obviously they do, but like, it just kind of felt like, oh, just kind of try to do your best is their defensive philosophy. I agree, should be a get right game for Purdue, but you still do at some point have to take care of business. Biggest thing,
No doubt.
and I'll save or mention it here. I'll come back to it at the end. I just want to see some of the mainly Lawyer, Colvin Hyde. I just want to see them knock down some threes. They are combined 3 for their last 28 from 3. So getting those guys just to knock some shots down would be beneficial, even if it is against a not good team, and that'll be kind of the concern going forward is, do these guys knock down threes against good teams? That's not the case in this one, though. So yeah, that
Yeah.
was a little bit more of an overview than I expected, but we can kind of jump into the roster.
It is nice too that we're not playing a team that like ranks in the top 25 in age. The league
Yeah.
finally, after what feels like the last 6 games of being like, oh, they rank top 10, they rank top 20 in terms of experience and age. 155th average experience is 1.87 years. This is a team that primarily scores off 2. If you look at 3-point attempts versus field goal attempts, they rank 345th in the country in that regard, 311th in terms of percentage of their points coming from threes. A team that's really, really comfortable attempting mid-range shots and trying to get into the paint a little bit more. And not a team, a team that has some length in terms of wings, guys that are 6'6", 6'7", but don't really have a big man that's got true height. Let's just jump in to some of these player groupings a little bit, and we'll kind of just start off with the guards. The leading scorer, Sonny Wilson, averages 15.2 and 3.3 assists a game. Playing point guard at 6'1". You've got Sam Lewis at shooting guard, averaging 13.9 a game. Both of those guys, in terms of Sonny Wilson, Sonny Wilson and Sam Lewis, both shooting the 3-ball well, although they don't shoot a lot of them. They only shoot 2.1 and 2.7 a game. And then you've got some backups and Seth Hubbard at 6'4" and Bryce Ford that come in. Hubbard plays really almost starter minutes at times, averaging about 22.9 minutes per game, with 9 points, 2.4 assists off of the bench. And then I guess we could probably go ahead and group Isaiah Adams in at 6'7" in this kind of guard wing group too, averaging 10.4 points a game. Everybody kind of rebounds, pitches into rebounding. There's not like a dominant rebounder on this team. I would not call them a really proficient rebounding team by any means. 311th in offensive rebound percentage, but they kind of do it by committee. And other than Sonny Wilson and Sam Lewis being kind of a tick higher, then they've got a lot of guys that are kind of in that 10, 11, 9-point range, or not a lot. I guess their next 3. I guess what jumps out to you from the guard and wing room there?
Yes, Sonny Lewis is the go-to. He's the lead guard. He's going to shoot. He's one of the main guys in terms of running pick and rolls. This isn't like a super heavy pick and roll offense, but Sonny Wilson's the guy that will do it. He's going to get in the mid-range. He's going to get downhill a lot. He is also the guy that one of the games I watched multiple times, even off of a make, he gets the inbounds quick and he just drives straight to the rim. Like, he is going to want to get downhill. Only 6'1", so it's not like he's this super gigantic guard or anything, but he's done a pretty good job finishing at the rim. And a lot of those come from, like I said, just pushing and basically beating the defense. Not that he has to beat the defense down the floor, but beating the defense down the floor, not letting them set up. He's option 1, and I don't know if Colvin takes him. I don't know if Braden takes him just because of the size thing, but he'll be priority number 1 to stop. Sam Lewis is the next that kind of pops off as like, he's a guy that can knock down threes. I think you want him putting the ball on the ground, though. Like, if you can get him to put the ball on the ground, that feels like the better proposition, I guess, in terms of letting him get an open 3. Can get out and run in transition, just like a lot of these teams will do. Seth Hubbard, you mentioned, he's kind of the backup point guard, but will also play alongside Sonny. He's the other main guy that'll run a lot of pick and roll. I guess Isaiah Adams will a bit as well. Hasn't been super efficient. Maybe the most balanced player in terms of, like, he can shoot the 3. I know his percentage he's probably a little bit better than what his percentage shows at 30%. He shot a bit better in the past. Can get downhill, can get to the mid-range, can facilitate a little bit. Not like exceptionally elite in any of those categories, though. I do think he's a solid defender. Maybe their best or second best perimeter defender, in my opinion. Bryce Ford, not a big minutes guy, shooter, going to put up threes, handle the ball a bit, but he's a guy you do not want to like get open look. And I think the last guy you mentioned for that group, Isaiah Adams, he's not an efficient offensive player at all. Takes a lot of jumpers, both 3 and mid range. He's going to be their mix of like he can catch and go, or you can be a guy that runs some pick and roll, drives, gets downhill. Now he's 6'7", 235. Like it'll be interesting to see how Purdue matches up with that. Do they throw Colvin on him and throw Braden on Sonny and Fletch on Sam Lewis with their starter group? Now, when Seth Hubbard comes in, you can kind of change that a bit too, but he's probably their best defender, I think, too, on a defense that's not good. It's not like he's elite, but I do think he's probably the best.
Yeah, and just to your point there in terms of Hubbard, just kind of going back to him for a second in terms of inefficiency, a guy that's only, or you said Isaiah Adams, sorry, not Hubbard, right? Only shooting 22% from 3 on the year, but very high volume shooter. He's not efficient at all, but averaging the 3rd most attempts on this team. I watched them play Jacksonville State, a game that they won, and I watched them play Oakland, a game that they got just absolutely drubbed. For me, Wilson didn't have a great game in that Oakland game. Lewis is the one that kind of jumped off the page to me, is just a guy that's got some length that, yeah, I know you said you want him to put the ball on the floor, but saw him hit some mid-range, saw him get to the rim a time or two as well in both of those games. So for me, I think it starts and ends or not starts and ends, but starts on defense. Just trying to jam and stop Sonny Wilson, and then Sam Lewis to me is second priority. As we look at the bigs, moving over to power forward and center kind of positions, 4 or 5 positions, you've got Javon Simmons out there, who is a 6'7" forward, averaging 11.5 points per game, 4.4 rebounds a game, a guy that seems to kind of be an energy guy. I was kind of surprised his point total was as high as it was, average for the year, but he's that energy grunt, kind of really hard-working guy. He's the one guy to me that kind of will get in there and get dirty and get some of those offensive rebounds for the few that they do get. And then Jalen Owinga, 6'9" center, guy that looks like he has a lot of physical traits that should translate in time. He comes in as a freshman, didn't start the first game of the year, scored 14 points in that first game, and then has started every game since then. Kind of undersized at the center spot, but essentially the same size as TKR, has some length, relatively smooth, but man, his post defense is god awful. In those games that I watched, in my head, I just saw TKR just eating him alive. In a game earlier this year, he only plays 16 minutes and fouls out in those 16 minutes. Looks to me like a guy that TKR should really be able to take advantage of. And then really the only other guy to talk about is Andre Lawrenson at 6'10", so a little bit bigger. He'll play some 4. He'll play some backup center primarily. A sophomore. So if we're looking across their starting lineup, they go sophomore, 5th year senior, junior. Nope, sophomore, 5th year senior, sophomore, freshman in their starting lineup. So this is a young group. Lawrenson, though, not a real high scorer for this team, but he has gotten hot in a couple of games, especially the Jacksonville State game from outside, and knocked down some threes as well.
Yeah, their big room isn't super big. I didn't even because I was literally, as we started, I'm just kind of looking through things. They have Gerger Burchich. He might get run just because the rest of their bigs might get in foul trouble. He's played only 6 games. He doesn't do much. Starting with Javon Simmons, he's when Lawrenson comes in, and Lawrenson plays roughly 20 minutes a game, I think. I don't have exact numbers, but I would ballpark it right about 20 minutes a game. When Lawrenson's in, it's almost like Lawrenson's the 4 and Simmons is the 5. And then if Lawrenson's paired with Owinga, then Lawrenson's maybe more of a true big type thing. But Lawrenson is a guy, he's going to pick and pop. That's what he's going to do. He's only taken 1 shot at the rim, 6'9". Like, he's going to stretch the floor. He's going to be a pick and pop big. When he's in with Javon Simmons, especially, Simmons is basically just like the center. He's the guy that they'll throw the ball to in the post a lot, gets a lot of post touches, wants to go over the right shoulder a lot more than the left. He's a true center, even at 6'7". He's going to post up. He's going to be active on the offensive rebound. He's going to be the main screen setter, cuts, rolls, things like that. Don't know what the defense really is. Don't think it's that great. Owinga, he's a guy that's not used too much offensively as when he is out there. He's more of a like he doesn't get a ton of post touches, a little bit more spotting up or just kind of the big man roles, things like that. Their bigs, aside from Simmons, just don't have a ton of usage. Lawrenson's going to pick and pop. Wingas maybe can bring some energy, just athleticism, physicality. Simmons is the guy that will get the ball in the post and be featured down low. But yeah, not a super deep big room at all. They're not gigantic either, 6'7", 6'9", 6'9". This as we kind of transition out of the roster, like this feels like a game TKR should be able to get what he wants, unless they double, and even then he still might.
Yeah, and they did show in especially that Oakland game, they showed that they doubled the post. But they were really slow to double. There was multiple times in that game that the man from Oakland just kind of ate that double alive, stepped through, hit a guy on a pass, or still scored over it. So I really think TKR should be able to eat either way in this game. And also, I mean, if they're gonna double, TKR should be able to find the open man. And obviously, we've seen a couple of games where he's had a few more turnovers, where they've kind of put some help on him. But I think specifically in this game, this should be one where we ought to see his assist numbers be higher too, because I do think they most likely double, especially if they're coming in looking at the scouting report and seeing that Cam hasn't necessarily done a lot from a scoring standpoint in a while from that 4 spot. I would assume, just looking at this on paper, then if at the 4-5, so is there any chance with the fact that Simmons is really kind of more the true post up big that we see TKR on him?
That's where I assume so, especially when Lawrenson's in. I don't expect TKR to ever guard Lawrenson unless Toledo plays like really small, which they can do. But no, I think TKR takes Simmons. Well, yeah, no, I think so, and then probably Heidi on Winga to start. Um, and for sure, when it's Lawrenson and Simmons in, though, I'm very confident that it's TKR on Simmons and Heidi or whoever else is in it on Lawrence or on the stretch for Lawrenson.
Yeah, I'm with you there 100%. As we kind of move then to like keys of this game from a Purdue standpoint, I guess I'll throw it to you first, kind of defensively. What do you see Purdue needing to do?
Yeah, I think Toledo, like first things first, got to stop just Toledo getting easy buckets in transition, right? Keep the points in transition down, and especially off of makes too, right? Get a make, get back on defense, slow things up. They do a good job jamming in general in the full court, but really have to be on point with that. Don't let Toledo get easy buckets there. The other thing I think is just like you got to do a good enough job with navigating off ball movement. Toledo, they run a lot of good stuff. They'll run a lot of stuff from the elbow. They'll run a lot of similar stuff to Purdue of like those zoom actions, staggered pin downs on the weak side, things like that, where Purdue hasn't necessarily been great at defending. I think Purdue doesn't have to be elite defensively, but just enough to force Toledo into a little bit tougher shots. Now, Toledo is fine taking tough shots. They're fine working in the mid range. They take a lot of shots there. But just kind of making Toledo work and not be able to just to get those open looks is really the two key things I have defensively.
Yeah, and I can agree with you there. I think it is always interesting to me, even though maybe maybe Purdue's a little bit different with TKR instead of Zach out there defensively in terms of what they can do. But it is interesting to me that this team, such a low percentage of their points come from 3, and they are really comfortable getting to their mid-range game. So interested to see exactly how they decide to play Toledo defensively and what Matt Painter draws up there. On the offensive side of things, I'll start here. I've already alluded to it a few times, but I just really don't think they can handle Purdue in the post. Quite frankly, that this feels like a game to me where TKR could go for 25 to 30, like we've seen him do in some games. This seems like a game to me that even our backup bigs should be able to come in and provide some good minutes down low from a scoring standpoint and a defensive standpoint. I guess outside of that, other than the post play and being able to really exploit that, what else do you see here, Joe?
I think Purdue needs to dominate the glass. Toledo's not a good rebounding team. It kind of goes hand in hand with the post because that is, TKR dominating the post was bullet point number 1. Besides that, though, like I really do think Purdue should just kind of get whatever look they want. Would like to see Braden Smith just control the game from day one, or from the tip, I should say. And then kind of going back to what I said at the beginning, just seeing these guys knock down some shots. Colvin, Lawyer, Heidi. I know, CJ Cox has been the guy that he's benefited from garbage time, but he's still been the guy to knock down shots. And so, but aside from him, nobody really has, at least on the off ball stuff. And so Fletcher, Colvin, Heidi, looking for them to knock down a shot or two and just kind of get rolling is really the only other key I really have offensively. Be Purdue and just be good offensively, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I would love to see those guys get going again. Especially as I was watching that Oakland game, though, in my head, I was like, man, they really struggled against pick and roll with the little short. Oakland will kind of run that little short roll as well.
Mhm.
And they really struggled both handling the big man and containing the guard. So as much as I would love to see everybody else gets going, this feels like a game where Braden and TKR could just dominate both in terms of points scored and the percentage of shot attempts taken. But yes, would absolutely love to see everybody else get going. Would really like to see some bench minute productions too. Obviously, we've seen CJ, he was a leading scorer in that Auburn game, first freshman to do that since Braden Smith a couple of years ago. We've seen him get going a couple of times, but would love to see Jakari get going. Would love to see Caleb and maybe Raleigh get going a little bit in this game too, just to build a little bit of confidence before we go into this Big Ten stretch. I really like our opening Big Ten stretch. I know you talked about it in the post-game show. I listened to that at 2 a.m. on my drive back from Alabama the other day. It's a stretch where they really should find success, and I think we'll start to see them climb up in some metrics and in AP polling, even though Joe hates AP polling. Again, kind of as we go through that stretch, I think they'll be able to handle business. But it would be really nice going into that if we could see a few guys off the bench, and then, like you said, Fletcher, Miles, and Cam kind of get going again here too.
Yeah, get those guys going. Let CJ continue to cook. Jakari, I still have Jakari stock, even though it maybe doesn't come up this year. Yeah, just you're. I think this stretch showed Braden and TKR and Fletch to a degree can keep you in a lot of games. Obviously, the Auburn one kind of excluded from that. Just needs somebody to step up. That A&M game, Colvin, Heidi, even Lawyer from 3 knocked down a couple. It's a different game. Penn State, I still kind of think that could have been a different game if they do. So we will be live after the Purdue Toledo game. So, Sunday, December 29th. It is a 6 p.m. Eastern time tip. Big Ten Network back in the friendly confines of Mackey Arena. We will be live shortly after the final buzzer, and where we will be breaking down more from the Purdue perspective of just what went right, what went wrong. Probably a little bit, if this game goes how we think it's going, right, where Purdue wins by 20 plus, probably, maybe a little bit of talk too about just the upcoming Big Ten play. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on bell notifications, and we will catch you all after the Purdue Toledo game.